Hey everyone! Today we're going to talk about one of the coolest times in history, the Tang Dynasty. It's known as a golden age for China, a time when the country was full of progress and amazing ideas. From big changes in government to incredible inventions, the Tang Dynasty was a time that shaped the future of not just China, but the whole world. The story begins after the Han Dynasty fell, leaving China in chaos. Different groups like the Wei, Jin, and Wu dynasties took turns ruling, but nothing really lasted. Then the Sui dynasty came along. At first they did some good things, like organizing the government and encouraging the arts. But soon, the last two Sui emperors, Wen and Yang, got too focused on war and building massive monuments. They ignored the people, spent way too much money, and left the country in a mess. Emperor Yang was eventually killed, and that's when things started to change. A general named Li Yuan stepped up to fix the chaos. He rebelled against the Sui and created the Tang Dynasty, becoming Emperor Gaozu. Gaozu worked hard to rebuild China. He made taxes fairer, gave farmers more land, and wrote new laws that other countries, like Japan and Korea, later copied. His changes brought peace and stability to the country. But Gaozu's son, Li Shimin, wanted to do even more. Li Shimin had fought alongside his father to create the Tang Dynasty, and he was a skilled warrior and leader. When Gaozu chose another son, Li Jiancheng, to take over someday, Li Shimin couldn't accept it. He launched a coup, defeated his brothers, and made his father step down. Once he became emperor, he took the name Taizong. Even though his rise to power was violent, Taizong turned out to be one of the greatest rulers in Chinese history. Taizong was all about making things better for everyone. He improved the government, strengthened the military, and allowed different religions like Buddhism and Christianity to thrive. People trusted him because he got things done and made life better. Taizong's leadership set the stage for one of the best times in China's history. Then there's Empress Wu Zetian, one of the most fascinating leaders ever. She started as a concubine for Taizong, but caught the eye of his son, Li Ji. After Taizong died, Wu and Li Ji, who became Emperor Gaozong, became close. Wu eventually became Gaozong's favorite and used her intelligence to outsmart her rivals, gaining more power over time. Wu Zetian's rule was both amazing and controversial. Some people say she was ruthless, using secret police to keep control. But she also brought big improvements. She made schools better, fixed the tax system, and balanced the power of the rich. Thanks to her, the government worked more smoothly, and the country became stronger. While some historians call her a tyrant, others now see her as a smart leader who stabilized China. In the end, she stepped down and passed away in 705 CE. The Tang Dynasty wasn't just great because of its leaders. It was a time of incredible creativity and discoveries. Some of the world's most important inventions, like gunpowder and printing, came from this period. Under Emperor Xuanzong, and when he became emperor in 712 CE, the Tang Dynasty reached its peak, but his choices later on led to its decline. At first, Xuanzong brought peace and prosperity to China. He reformed the government, improved trade along the Silk Road, and promoted Taoism, which he believed could bring harmony to the country. He even abolished the death penalty and focused on making life better for the people. Xuanzong also loved the arts. His support helped writers, artists, and inventors thrive. During his reign, over 50,000 poems and stories were created, woodblock printing was improved, and books became easier to access. This allowed more people to learn to read and qualify for government jobs. Libraries were built, new medical knowledge was shared, and technological inventions like clocks and hydraulic machines amazed the world. Life got better for ordinary people, with new farming tools and even air conditioning making daily life more comfortable. But as the years went on, problems began to grow. Tired of the hard work of ruling, Xuanzong started relying on Lady Wu Huifei, who suggested he give more power to her family friend, Li Linfu. At first this seemed fine, but Li Linfu turned out to be selfish and corrupt. He only cared about his own power, and his actions began to weaken the government. Things became worse after Lady Wu died in 737 CE. Xuanzong pulled back from his duties and spent more time enjoying himself. Then, in 741 CE, he fell deeply in love with Yang Guifei, a woman who was married to his son. Yang left her husband to be with Xuanzong, and quickly became very powerful in the court. She convinced Xuanzong to promote her family members to high positions, even though they weren't qualified. This led to more corruption and chaos, as her family misused their power. By this time, Li Linfu had also filled the government and army with people who didn't deserve their positions. When Li died in 753 CE, the Tang Dynasty was already in trouble. In 755 CE, a general named An Lushan decided to rebel against the emperor. An Lushan commanded a strong army and believed it was his duty to fix the government's problems. He led his troops toward the capital and declared himself emperor. Xuanzong fled the capital with Yang Guifei and her family, but their escape was filled with tragedy. The soldiers escorting them blamed Yang for the rebellion and demanded her death. Heartbroken, Xuanzong allowed Yang to be executed. This marked the end of their love story, which later inspired the famous poem, Song of the Everlasting Sorrow. After losing Yang, Xuanzong stepped down as emperor, and his son, Li Heng, took the throne as Emperor Xuzong. Xuzong tried to fight back against the rebellion, but the war had already caused massive destruction. Millions of people died, and the country was left in ruins. Local warlords took control of different regions, making it impossible for the central government to regain full power. Xuanzong spent his last years filled with regret, passing away in 762 CE. His son Xuzong died shortly after, and although Emperor Dezong later defeated the rebels, the Tang Dynasty was never the same. The rebellion marked the end of its golden age, leaving China to struggle with rebuilding. And later Tang Dynasty tells a story of ups and downs, with some moments of hope, but mostly a slide into trouble. After Emperor Dezong died in 779 CE, his son Dezong became emperor in 780 CE. By this time, regional warlords were so powerful that the central government could no longer control them. Dezong tried to fix this by putting palace eunuchs in charge of the army, thinking they would be loyal. Instead, the eunuchs used their power for themselves, making things worse. Dezong's sickly son Xuanzong took the throne in 805 CE, but quickly gave it up to his son, Xuanzong. Xuanzong was different from his father and grandfather. He was a capable leader. He removed the eunuchs from the military and took charge of the army himself. He even defeated some warlords and brought a period of stability. Xuanzong also brought back the merit-based system for government jobs, which rewarded people for their abilities rather than their family connections. In 813 CE, rebellions broke out again, likely led by relatives of the defeated warlords. Xuanzong personally led his army but lost at first. Eventually, he won an important victory in 817 CE, keeping the empire together for a little longer. But Xuanzong became obsessed with trying to live forever. He took so-called elixirs of immortality that made him paranoid and unpredictable. In 820 CE, a palace eunuch assassinated him. Xuanzong's son Wuzong became emperor next, but he cared more about playing polo and drinking than ruling. He died in a polo accident, and his son Jinzong took over. Jinzong also spent his days drinking and ignoring his duties until palace eunuchs killed him. His brother Wenzong became emperor after that. Wenzong wanted to do a good job, but he couldn't make decisions and often changed his mind based on what his advisors said. When Wenzong died in 840 CE, his younger brother Wuzong became emperor. Wuzong is remembered for his harsh actions against religions. He believed the scholar Han Yu, who said Buddhism was bad for China because it weakened traditional values. Between 842 and 845 CE, Wuzong shut down Buddhist monasteries, took their money, and forced monks and nuns to leave. Other religions like Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and Judaism also suffered. Wuzong himself died in 846 CE, after drinking a poisonous elixir of immortality. After Wuzong, Li Chen, the 13th son of Xuanzong, became Emperor Xuanzong II. Xuanzong II tried to bring back the glory days of the early Tang Dynasty. He reopened Buddhist temples, but kept restrictions on other religions. His reign saw some cultural and governmental improvements, but he died in 859 CE, after drinking another deadly elixir. Xuanzong II's son, Yizong, became the next emperor. Yizong was a poor leader who cared more about luxury than the suffering of his people. A terrible famine hit China, and the government did little to help. Meanwhile, a man named Huang Chao, frustrated by his failure to pass the government exams and angered by the famine, joined rebel forces. In 878 CE, Huang Chao led a massive rebellion that killed over 100,000 people and destroyed the capital city of Chang'an. The Tang emperors who followed couldn't recover from the damage. The last serious attempt to save the dynasty came from Emperor Dezong, but it wasn't enough. In 904 CE, a warlord named Zhu Quanzong forced Dezong to step down and made Dezong's young son, Ai, a puppet ruler. In 907 CE, Zhu had Ai killed, officially ending the Tang Dynasty. After the Tang, China entered a period called the 5 Dynasties and 10 Kingdoms, where the country was divided among regional rulers. It wasn't until the Song Dynasty united China in 960 CE that the country had a strong central government again. The Tang Dynasty is remembered for its amazing achievements in art, culture, and government. But its fall is a warning about the dangers of corruption and poor leadership.